Welcome back to the Republic of Sikistan, reporting directly, indirectly from Tokyo Olympics. What we're going to talk about today is probably something that's been bothering a lot of you. I know it's been bothering us here, and it's the complete lack of ability to easily watch the Olympics this time round. So when we were growing up, I specifically remember watching the Olympics at home. It used to be on RTE. It would be on most of the kind of normal terrestrial channels you'd have. I know in the US, NBC used to always have it. So for most of the time you were watching the Olympics, you could watch sport all day long. Now for us here, it's like pay-per-view. Eurosport is the only thing we're able to watch it on. If you want to watch or reshare something, or even to put something on your story, a lot of the time it will get taken down. Certainly anything to do with YouTube and having a video of the Olympics on YouTube is very, very likely to be pulled down. What we're going to talk about today is why it's so detrimental, especially for weightlifting, but for a lot of the other smaller sports, or smaller in terms of participation sports. It really, really is terrible for general people in the public not to be able to watch it. So when you take a sport like weightlifting, you have to look at the main sources of growth we've had in the last probably 2 decades, right? So you get the same everyone else does, which is you get your superstars. Superstars are these once in a lifetime or once in a generation athlete. So you get the Illins, you get the Lashas, you get these really standout people who bring people from other areas and bring people from other sports. So they reach outside the sport of weightlifting and we get new people in. The second way, and probably a way a lot of us would have gotten involved in, is you get involved in it through other sports. So you do weightlifting because you're a rugby player, or you do weightlifting because you're a CrossFitter. Then you get involved in weightlifting. You might start watching weightlifting content. You might start going to weightlifting competitions. The third way, and realistically for most people who aren't kind of athletically inclined, or most people who aren't training right now, the third way you get involved is by watching the Olympics. So for sports we might only get to watch fencing realistically once every few years. A lot of us probably only watch judo or a lot of the taekwondo once every 4 years when the Olympics comes around. When you hear so many people talking about how they started these sports, the Olympics is this kind of seed that's planted within them. I think for a country or a nation or the IOC to give the decision to make it all this pay-per-view online is unbelievably damaging, because you won't have the 12-year-olds going and getting pay-per-view on their tablet or on their phone. Realistically, unless you have parents who are directly involved in sport, or you have parents who are watching it themselves, they're probably not going to have access for the kids to it.
So the vicious irony of this scenario is it's actually very short-sighted for both the broadcasters and the IOC as a financial incentive. So obviously the idea that you would take down any footage is that you're taking away revenue that would have otherwise been given to the broadcasters. So that's their footage essentially, and they paid for the rights for that, and that supports some of the funding for the Olympics. So that seems fine on paper, but essentially what happens is the IOC takes a huge chunk of the revenue from the Olympics. So originally back in the 90s, it was something like 10, 12, 15% of the broadcasting revenue that the IOC would have taken. At the moment, it's something like 60 or 70%. We quoted this in a different video when we were reading an article, but they take a huge chunk of that revenue. So essentially, as they get greedier, they take more money. Less people can watch the sport, so less eyes on the sport, so sports become slowly less popular. Cities are more annoyed and countries are less likely to host the Olympics because they get less funding. Due to there being less funding and less profits, again, then you end up with less people wanting to hold the Olympics. Short-sighted for the IOC, and it's bad for basically everyone's sport. In terms then, for example, we have someone like Heidelin Diaz, a phenomenal story, a weightlifter from the Philippines. This is her 4th Olympics and she won gold. Made front page of the Reddit. 3 or 4 different subreddits she made on. I saw them on the front page in the app. I also saw a TikTok of her yesterday with 1.6 million views. I guarantee you 1.5.999999 million of those people who liked that video had no fucking clue what weightlifting was, but they did see a sport where weightlifting, where a woman was emotionally connected to the audience watching. She did phenomenal. And then people can't even repost stuff like that. So Seb can't even show any of the footage in his news reporting. And he's a legitimate weightlifting journalist as far as we're concerned in terms of the weightlifting world. People look to him for information and he can't even repost any of the footage. He has to post old clips from that. So it's borderline obnoxious. It just annoys everyone. Now you might say, well, why don't you just go pay for it and go watch the sessions? A lot of people, for example, Zach Talander was trying to show... he was literally showing me the video of him looking on Discovery, and he couldn't find the replays of weightlifting. So some of them are on demand, but there were simply a few highlights, and he literally could not go back and watch them, having paid for these through a positive means, through a legal means, which is, you might say one thing, why can't I go back, if you're looking for legal streams, but literally looking for a paid for view service, and you can't go back and watch those sports, is simply obnoxious. It's so short-sighted. Will it really take away from your revenue? If you're going to pay for them, you're probably going to watch them anyway, and if you were going to watch them on YouTube, you're probably not going to pay for them. So it's, again, another example of the bribery, greed, corruption of international sporting bodies and the IOC, but nothing realistically will change. It's very short-sighted as well in terms of being so out of touch with the social media age, where reposting of footage is so vital for things going viral, for example, and how things can take off. How many thousands of businesses have profited, for example, from TikTok, where someone posts a lot of TikToks of that video, and then they get hundreds, thousands of orders over a couple of days. Literally, people, you see them bagging sweets, reposting sweets, and sending them in domestically in their country. So things like the Olympics. The Olympic TikTok is taking off, and it's like hashtag Olympics TikTok, where Olympians are making TikToks and they're going viral, and loads of people want to see them. The fact that you can't watch footage of the competition is just borderline obnoxious. But here we are.
The other thing is, as well, is most of professional sport internationally is going in one direction, right? So it's going in the direction of higher frequency, more output. They're changing rules of sports so they're more kind of TV friendly. None of this is anything new. But for the Olympics, as it's kind of like its flagship of international sport, it's very much going down that route. You could almost see the Olympics taking a decision to go to a more frequent, falling rather than every 4 years. That literally wouldn't surprise me at this point. The disappointing thing here, though, is I think for a lot of the sports is we're just going to start losing out on that group of people that used to be brought in from the Olympics. Whether that sport is like equestrian sports, any of these kind of smaller niche sports that we don't have a chance to reach out and grab people, this is really like who gets affected by that. The IOC don't really get affected because a lot of their revenue is coming from the larger, like bigger bang for your buck sports, which is basically track and field, and some of the team sports. But mainly the IOC will concentrate on track and field, they'll concentrate on their big stars, and then they'll just allow the other smaller sports to fall off.
So, not really related to pro strength, but we like to talk about topics. So, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Let us know if you've been able to watch the weightlifting or any of the other sports that you wanted to watch. I haven't really seen anything else aside from being on Eurosport. I haven't been able to see. You literally cannot see. There's such a... I tried to stream some of it on Instagram for people to watch, and Instagram Live kept taking it down, which will tell you the levels. Again, nothing to do with Instagram. That's simply part of their algorithm, whatever. Same what happened on YouTube. So here we are. Here's
I sat down last night to watch some of the highlights. So it was like after the news, there's like 40 minutes of highlights, but you're still only getting these like brief clips. And like obviously we love seeing the Irish athletes. Like that's why we want to watch it, but you only get brief clips, and then the clips you do get are just of the Irish lads, and girls, obviously, who are having a phenomenal performance. But as a whole, like you like the whole immersive experience. Like the Olympics used to be this few weeks of just sitting down watching all of it and being so excited about it. So it's a bit disappointing. I'm not quite sure how they'll go about rectifying it. To be honest, if the IOC are going to do anything like their previous track record, they're going to bury their head in the sand, and it will only get worse.
Yep. Thanks for watching, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Very interested what you have to say about it, and let us know if you've been able to watch your sports or not, as the case may be.
Thank you.